Before we dive in, I want you to imagine something. What if the reason he's not calling you has nothing to do with how interested he is, and everything to do with a psychological pattern he doesn't even realize he's following? Because here's the truth. Almost no one tells you men don't pull away because they're bored, distracted, or losing interest. More often, they pull away because something in the connection made them feel like they could predict you too quickly. And once predictability sets in, pursuit disappears. Men are biologically wired to respond to two emotional cues, reward and anticipation. If both aren't present, communication drops, slowly at first, then suddenly. It doesn't matter how beautiful, intelligent, or emotionally giving you are. If a man doesn't feel those two cues, he won't consistently initiate contact. But here's the twist. You don't need games, manipulation, or pretending to be someone else to spark anticipation. You simply need to understand how men emotionally transition from casual interest to consistent pursuit. And in this video, starting right now, you're going to learn the first step that flips that switch, the psychological shift that makes a man think, I should call her and I actually want to. The first psychological cue that instantly sparks a man's interest and keeps it alive is something I call selective openness. This isn't about being mysterious, distant, or withholding parts of yourself on purpose. It's about letting him feel like he's earning access to who you are. Because when a man senses that parts of you are revealed gradually rather than all at once, he becomes emotionally invested in discovering more. Think about it. When someone gives you everything up front, every detail, every emotion, every story, you subconsciously stop leaning in. It's human nature. We value what we uncover, not what's handed to us without effort. Men, especially, are wired to respond to this dynamic. They feel more connected to what they participate in, not what they simply receive. So how does this look in real conversation? It means sharing enough that he feels connected, but not so much that he feels like he's reached the end of your emotional depth. Instead of giving lengthy explanations or over-clarifying your feelings, offer your thoughts with intentional space. For example, if he asks about your day, you don't need to give a detailed report. You can share one genuine highlight and leave a little space for curiosity. It's not about withholding, it's about pacing. Selective openness also shows up in how you express interest. When you communicate that you enjoy talking to him without making him the center of your universe, it triggers something powerful. He realizes your attention has value, and that value makes him want to step up, to engage more, to pursue the connection rather than just participate in it passively. Men become deeply drawn to women who reveal themselves in layers, not to create a chase, but because it allows the relationship to unfold in a natural rhythm. That rhythm creates emotional resonance. It makes him feel like he's part of your unfolding story, not a spectator who already knows the ending. When you practice selective openness, something subtle but powerful happens. He starts thinking about you when you're not around. He wonders what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you'll share next. And that wondering, that gentle curiosity, is what drives him to call, reach out, and pursue more consistently. This is how interest sparks, not through pressure, not through over-investing, but through creating a dynamic where connection grows one meaningful step at a time. Curiosity is one of the most underestimated emotional forces in attraction, yet it shapes a man's behavior far more than most people realize. Curiosity makes a man lean forward instead of pulling back. It makes him think about you when he's busy, check his phone hoping you reached out, and look for opportunities to initiate contact. When a man is curious about you, genuinely emotionally curious, he starts to feel internally compelled to pursue, almost without knowing why. So let's break down what's really happening beneath the surface when curiosity comes into play. Men are naturally wired to respond to anything that feels slightly unpredictable, evolving, or layered, not chaotic, not confusing, just not flat. When a connection feels one-dimensional, men lose the emotional spark that makes them want to explore. But when a woman reveals herself gradually, with depth and authenticity, it activates a tension inside him, not stress, but a gentle pull that keeps him engaged. Curiosity is born when he senses that there's more to you than what's immediately visible. It might be the way you talk about your goals with excitement, or how you share a story that hints at a deeper experience without explaining every detail. It could be your ability to laugh at yourself, or the confidence you carry even when you're being vulnerable. These things create emotional texture, and emotional texture creates pursuit. When a man is curious about you, he begins to generate his own reasons to reach out. He'll send a message just to see how you'll respond. He'll call because he wants to hear the tone of your voice. He'll keep conversations going because he's interested in your perspective, your reactions, your energy. Curiosity turns a man from passive to proactive. It shifts him from responding to initiating. What's important to understand is that curiosity doesn't come from performing or pretending. It doesn't come from playing distant or cold. That kind of artificial mystery fades quickly and usually creates more anxiety than attraction. True curiosity comes from showing different sides of yourself naturally. It's your humor, your intelligence, your boundaries, your passions, all expressed without rushing, without oversharing, and without trying to convince him of anything. One of the biggest mistakes women make is giving everything up front in an attempt to prove compatibility or build closeness fast. But closeness built too quickly often collapses just as fast. When a story, an emotion, or a part of your personality unfolds gradually, a man becomes invested in the unfolding. He feels like he's discovering you, not being fed information. And this feeling of discovery is addictive. Curiosity also grows when you maintain your own rhythm, your goals, your routines, your friendships. A man becomes most intrigued when he realizes you have a life he wants to be part of, not one that rearranges itself around him. When he sees you enjoying your world, he naturally wants more access to it. And this is the key. Curiosity keeps a man coming back because he believes there's more to experience with you. More conversations, more emotion, more depth, more layers. It's that what's next feeling that fuels consistent pursuit. When he's curious, he doesn't need reminders, hints, or pressure. He calls because he wants to, because your presence awakens a desire to explore the connection further. This is how curiosity becomes one of the strongest drivers of male pursuit, steady, powerful, and incredibly effective. The second psychological step that makes a man reach out consistently is something deeper than excitement, deeper than attraction, and even deeper than curiosity. It's the emotional trigger that flips a man from simply enjoying the connection to actively protecting and prioritizing it. I call this trigger emotional comfort with consequence. The moment he realizes that being connected to you feels good, but losing access to you would actually feel like a loss. Most men don't reach out consistently because they haven't emotionally registered what your presence means to them. They might like you, they might enjoy the conversations, they may even feel chemistry, but unless there's an emotional imprint, a moment where you affect him in a meaningful way, he doesn't feel compelled to act. Men pursue what they feel emotionally safe with, but also what they feel they cannot take for granted. And here's the part most women misunderstand. Emotional comfort isn't created by overgiving, over-explaining, over-texting, or trying harder. It's created when he feels that being himself around you brings him ease, clarity, and peace. When he senses that the connection doesn't demand performance, but it also doesn't let him slide into complacency. You create this emotional trigger in small moments, moments where you listen without rushing to fill the silence, moments where you express your feelings calmly instead of dramatically, moments where you show appreciation without attaching pressure. These moments make him feel seen without feeling judged, understood, without feeling controlled. Men crave that type of emotional space far more than they admit. But the second half of the trigger is equally important. He must also recognize, even subtly, that your emotional world doesn't collapse if he's inconsistent. When a man senses that you're solid in yourself, your time, your self-respect, your boundaries, he automatically assigns more value to the connection. Not because you're distancing yourself, but because you're not dependent on his attention to feel whole. This combination, feeling emotionally safe with you, but also aware that your attention has weight, creates a powerful shift inside him. Suddenly reaching out isn't an obligation or a courtesy. It's something he chooses because the connection brings him peace, interest, and meaning. And the potential of losing that begins to matter. Men are more likely to reach out when they feel admired for who they are, but also challenged in a way that inspires them to show up better. When you respond with softness, but hold your standards with quiet confidence, he starts seeing you as someone worth investing in, not someone just passing through his life. This emotional trigger is subtle, almost invisible, but incredibly effective. It makes him realize that conversations with you don't drain him, they build him. That your presence doesn't demand, it invites. That connecting with you leaves him feeling better than before. And once a man feels that, his instinct is simple: keep the connection alive, reach out, call, check in, stay present. That's when pursuit becomes natural. And that's when he reaches out, not because he should, but because he genuinely wants to. One of the biggest misconceptions in dating is the belief that you need major changes, big gestures, long emotional talks, or perfectly crafted messages to make a man engage more consistently. But the truth is, what shapes a man's behavior the most are the small communication shifts. These tiny adjustments influence the emotional tone of your interactions, the value he assigns to your presence, and the motivation he feels to stay connected. And the best part is, these changes don't require pretending, strategizing, or playing games. They simply require awareness. The first subtle shift is how you respond to his messages or calls. When he reaches out, instead of replying in a way that feels overly available or overly invested, aim for warmth paired with lightness. You can be friendly and open without sounding like his message made your whole day. Men feel more comfortable pursuing when they sense you're happy to hear from them, but not depending on it. That slight emotional independence creates a gentle pull that keeps him returning. Another powerful tweak is the way you share stories. Instead of giving long, detailed explanations, choose one or two vivid, meaningful details and let him lean into the rest. This isn't about being vague, it's about speaking in a way that leaves room for conversation. When you give him space to ask questions or follow up, he becomes an active participant rather than a passive listener. Participation is what builds connection. A third shift involves the energy behind your compliments. Instead of complimenting outcomes, like his looks or career successes, start appreciating qualities like effort, humor, consistency, or vulnerability. Men bond through feeling valued for who they are, not just for what they do. When your compliments touch something deeper, he naturally associates emotional safety with you. A surprisingly influential tweak is the way you handle pauses or silence. Many women rush to fill gaps with explanation or reassurance, thinking the silence means something is wrong. But when you stay relaxed during those small pauses, you communicate confidence. Men read that calmness as emotional maturity, and it makes them feel more at ease. When a man feels comfortable in your presence, even in quiet moments, he stays engaged long term. Another subtle but powerful shift is being able to express your needs without tension. A simple, "I like when you keep in touch, it helps me feel more connected," stated calmly, has far more impact than hints, accusations, or frustration. Men respond best to clarity delivered with softness. They shut down when things feel heavy, but rise when things feel collaborative. Finally, the way you end conversations matters just as much as how you start them. Ending on a warm note, something light, a small laugh, or a simple talk later keeps the emotional door open. It leaves him feeling positive about the exchange, which makes him far more likely to initiate the next one. These communication tweaks may seem small, but they shift the emotional atmosphere he experiences with you. And when the atmosphere feels good, easy, and meaningful, reaching out becomes the most natural thing in the world for him. Step 3 is about creating the kind of value that makes a man naturally move toward you without you having to chase, convince, or remind him. And this kind of value doesn't come from being perfect, overly accommodating, or endlessly giving. Real value, the kind that makes a man step up consistently, comes from how he experiences you in the connection, the energy you bring, the emotional standard you hold, and the way you move through the world with confidence and self-respect. Creating value without chasing begins with understanding one simple truth. Pursuit dies when a man feels like he has nothing left to earn. But pursuit grows when he feels the connection is meaningful, alive, and built with two people each bringing something to the table. When you stop over-functioning, emotionally or practically, you shift the dynamic from imbalance to something he actively participates in. So what does creating value look like in real conversations and real moments? It looks like showing interest without overextending. It looks like being warm, but not dropping everything every time he calls. It looks like responding with enthusiasm when you genuinely feel it, instead of forcing it to keep him engaged. Men don't fall for perfection, they fall for authenticity paired with self-trust. One of the most powerful ways to create value is by keeping your emotional center. Instead of reacting quickly or intensely when plans change or communication slows, you stay grounded. You take a breath. You respond in a way that reflects your standards, not your fears. That emotional steadiness sends a message he feels instantly. You're a woman whose emotions do not depend on his behavior, but whose acceptance he still wants to earn. Another part of creating value is giving him a unique emotional experience, one that feels genuine, uplifting, and real. Men are drawn to women who bring presence, not pressure. When you laugh easily, when you share moments instead of managing them, when you express yourself without needing him to fix anything, you create emotional quality. And emotional quality is what men return to again and again. Creating value without chasing also shows up in how you move in your own life. A woman who keeps her goals alive, her interests active, and her friendships strong sends a very natural message. She's fulfilled, but open, independent, but inviting. Men find that balance irresistible because it means you're not asking them to complete your world, you're offering them a place in it. And perhaps the most magnetic part of creating value is your standards. Not spoken as a lecture, but lived through your actions. When your time is treated with care, when communication is reciprocal, when effort is noticed and reciprocated, you reinforce the emotional structure in which a man feels motivated to show up. You're not chasing, you're not proving, you're simply being a woman with emotional depth, self-worth, and connection to her own life. And when you stand in that energy, a man doesn't just reach out, he chooses to stay consistent because he feels the privilege of being part of your world. When you put all three steps together, selective openness, curiosity, and creating value without chasing, something powerful happens in the way a man experiences you. These steps change the emotional rhythm of the connection, and that rhythm is what determines whether he becomes passive or whether he steps forward and initiates first. Most women think men initiate simply because they're interested, but interest alone isn't enough to create consistent effort. It's the emotional state he enters when talking to you that determines how he behaves when you're not around. Men initiate when they feel energized, not drained. They reach out when they feel respected, not controlled. And they pursue when the connection gives them a sense of movement, like something meaningful is growing between you, but not in a way that overwhelms them. The steps you've learned so far create exactly that balance. Step 1 makes him lean in because he senses depth. Step 2 gives him emotional comfort while still making your presence feel meaningful. Step 3 reminds him that your world is full and vibrant, and he has to show up with intention if he wants to be part of it. These steps also shift the way he perceives your value. Not superficial value, not look how much I do for you value, but emotional value, the kind that leaves an imprint. When a man feels good during and after his interactions with you, he begins to associate you with emotional reward. And human beings always return to what feels rewarding. He doesn't have to be pushed, hinted, or coerced. His own internal experience becomes the motivation. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you're no longer chasing. He has room to feel his own desire. Men need space to realize, I want to connect with her. If you're always initiating, following up, or trying to maintain the momentum, he never gets to feel that pull. But when your energy is steady, open, inviting, but not overextending, his instinct kicks in. He starts thinking about you on his own. He starts noticing the quiet moments when he misses your voice or your presence. And those moments are what lead him to call first. Another reason these steps work is because they create an emotional contrast. The world often demands from men pressure, performance, responsibility. With you, he experiences something different. Clarity, ease, interest, and genuine connection. That contrast makes him want more. He returns to what feels balanced. He initiates because the connection feels like a safe place, not another obligation. When these steps are practiced consistently, he doesn't just stay in the picture, he becomes more intentional. He starts planning conversations, not just responding to them. He starts anticipating your next interaction. he starts feeling the subtle fear of losing access to something meaningful. And that is what makes him initiate first. Not manipulation, not strategy, but the emotional experience you create simply by being grounded, confident, and connected to your own value. Let's bring everything we've covered into real-life situations, so you can see exactly how these principles work in practice. Theory alone rarely changes behavior, action does. The beauty of the steps we've discussed is that they are subtle, practical, and can be applied immediately in conversations, texts, and everyday interactions. Imagine he hasn't called in a few days. Instead of sending a long message trying to explain or guilt him into responding, you use a small touch of selective openness. You might send a short, light message like, "Had the funniest thing happened today. Can't wait to tell you about it," without filling in all the details. That one line piques curiosity, gives him space to initiate, and invites a response without chasing. Or consider an in-person conversation. When he's sharing something about his day, instead of over-explaining or jumping to give advice, you respond with active listening and a small emotional cue, like, "Wow, that must have been intense. How did that feel?" This communicates interest and emotional safety, triggers connection, and subtly signals that he's valued. He feels understood, not interrogated, and that naturally encourages him to engage more. Texting provides another opportunity to apply these steps. Instead of replying instantly every time, or trying to be overly witty, you match energy with warmth, curiosity, and authenticity. A playful message, a short story, or even a thoughtful question can create a dynamic where he feels the pull to continue the conversation. The key is balance. You're present, engaging, and authentic, but not over-invested. Even compliments can be used strategically. Instead of complimenting superficial things like appearance alone, you highlight effort or character, like, "I really admire how committed you are to that project. It's inspiring." He now associates you with emotional depth, not just surface-level attention. Every small interaction, text, call, or in-person moment, can implement the 3 steps without feeling forced. Selective openness, curiosity, and creating value without chasing become your natural rhythm. And when done consistently, he starts initiating first, reaching out on his own, and engaging with more enthusiasm. The power lies in subtlety. You don't have to manipulate or overthink. You simply create an emotional experience that is rewarding, meaningful, and slightly irresistible. That's what makes him want to call, message, and stay connected on his own initiative. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to see the bigger picture. The steps we've covered, selective openness, curiosity, and creating value without chasing, aren't tricks or manipulations. They are subtle psychological principles that create an emotional rhythm men naturally respond to. When you understand these dynamics, you stop feeling like you're constantly chasing or waiting for a call. Instead, you create an environment where he wants to initiate on his own, because the connection is engaging, meaningful, and emotionally rewarding. The most important thing to remember is that consistency matters. These steps are not one-off tactics. They are ways of interacting that, over time, shape the way he experiences you. Every interaction, whether it's a text, a phone call, or a conversation in person, becomes a small opportunity to reinforce emotional curiosity and value. When you combine that with calm confidence and a clear sense of your own worth, you set a natural dynamic where pursuit becomes his choice, not yours. Your next step is simple but powerful. Apply one element at a time, observe the effect, and refine naturally. You might start with selective openness, sharing just enough in your next conversation to spark curiosity. Then notice how he responds. Gradually incorporate the other steps, adding emotional triggers that feel genuine and maintaining a rhythm of connection that highlights your value without chasing. Over a few weeks, these small, consistent adjustments compound into a dramatic shift in his behavior. Remember, this isn't about controlling him or creating a formula for manipulation. It's about understanding human psychology, respecting your own boundaries, and creating a connection that feels good for both of you. When you align curiosity, emotional resonance, and self-respect, men don't just stay, they engage, initiate, and pursue. By practicing these steps consciously, you create a natural dynamic where he reaches out first because the interaction feels rewarding, not obligatory. The connection becomes effortless, the conversations enjoyable, and the attraction genuine. Your role is simple: stay authentic, keep your energy intentional, and trust that a man who feels your value will naturally initiate. Start implementing today, watch how he responds, and notice how the balance shifts. Pursuit, communication, and connection aren't about chasing. They're about creating the emotional environment where he chooses to be present, excited, and consistent.